tell his story in detail and to share our feelings about it, we need to do it. And if sharing anything about ourselves and about our children can have any kind of impact on somebody who is in the position that we were in previously, then that is exactly what we need to do.
I'm Hannah Skirmahorn, Sage's mom. Sage was and is the most important person and force in our life. He's changed everything for us. We had a fairly normal, lovely, healthy pregnancy with Sage. There really weren't any issues to complain of. There was one point when I was about 7 months pregnant where I felt some strange movements in utero, and I thought that they may have been indicative of something, but our doctor assured us that, it was probably just my own anxiety, and everything was healthy. I went into labor at about 36. I kind of began early, and I gave birth 2 weeks later, and he was large.
Yes.
The whole thing was really beautiful. It was really incredible.
We were totally enamored and just
Yeah.
excited about the entire process.
Yeah,
It was totally love-filled.
It was wonderful. And the labor aspect was really intense. It happened really fast. It was a little chaotic, but it went exactly as we wanted it to. But when Sage was born, we noticed that his head was a little bit larger, which I absolutely felt when I was giving birth to him. But he was a little dusky. He was a little purplish in his hue. There were some breathing issues, but nobody seemed concerned. We stayed in the delivery room, I think, an hour extra while they monitored. Off and on in the next 2 days, he was having issues with his blood sugar. So we had a nurse come in and, she would do a stick in his foot. And I remember being really upset that they were sticking him. I just wanted to keep him with me. Anyway, so what happened was this incredibly kind of fortuitous event. Eric was home with our other son, and a nurse was called in and didn't end up having a shift to be assigned to, and was taking care of a student nurse, right?
This was our day of discharge.
Yeah, we were about to be discharged, and she knocked on my door and asked if she could come in and just demonstrate some routine procedures. And she saw that Sage looked dusky again, and saw him. She didn't tell me immediately, but she saw a very, very small traces of a seizure happening. His eyes were flicking a little bit to the right. So she wanted to check his O2 saturation levels, and they were in the 40s. And she thought her instrument was malfunctioning. So she asked me just to scoop him up and walk down with her to the nurse's bay, and I laid him down on the isolette, and he had a full-blown seizure, and he coded. So I remember they pushed me into a rocking chair, and I just sat, and she called, for doctors. The alarm sounded, and within a few minutes, there were about 9-10 people just kind of going crazy. And Susan, that was the name of this nurse, completely saved his life. And she came and she said, Hannah, it's really serious. You need to get Eric back. We need to get him transferred. There's something really wrong with Sage. So we had him emergency transferred down to Tufts. And before we were sent there, the doctor that was with him told us that his heart was massively enlarged and told us that he was having seizures. So heart and brain were both affected, which, that's literally the worst news that you can get. That evening, we sat down with the head of the NICU department at Tufts, and they told us that Sage was born with a massive arteriovenous malformation, which had completely consumed the left hemisphere of his brain. So all the tissue was destroyed, and hundreds and hundreds, if not potentially thousands of arteries had grown and just kind of taken over the tissue. There were no capillaries. So all of the blood that was going into this lesion was just wasted. So his heart had grown.
The blood flow in that area was putting enormous strain on his heart.
Right.
And when I got back to the hospital right before his transfer, I remember walking in and his X-ray was on a computer screen outside of the nursery where he was, and it was from side to side across his entire chest. It was really shocking to see.
Yeah.
And when we had the meeting with the head of neonatology, the two people that we met with, they told us that they had never seen anything like what they saw in his scan, and they were not sure if he was going to survive the night, or really not sure about much.
Yeah, it was chaos. It was really insane, just because nobody knew what they were really dealing with. They didn't really know how he was alive. He was in kind of active organ failure. He was having SVT episodes where his heart was going up into like the 200 range, higher than that. And it was just this. It was just this full body devastation, and
It escalated very quickly.
yeah, it was wild. And we just sat there in this very dark room with these two people, and they didn't know. They had really no idea, and that, I think, was the first like kind of break, that happened internally, where we're sitting in Boston. Our baby is dying that we know of now. And nobody has even like really seen this before. It humbled, to say the least.